And Ulrikke, you actually got me onto this link here. So what stood out for you in this video?
Yeah, I really can't remember because it's so long since I saw the video. Completely, mine went completely blank. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Power Platform Boost podcast, your timely source of Power Platform news and updates, with your host, me, Ulrikke, and my co-host, Nick Dolman. How are you, Nick?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm great, thank you. So this episode, we're going to do things a little bit different. The old argument about how long we do have to do the podcast episodes. We're finally put to rest this week, or last episode, I think, with our Boost Quest. So between each episode, we have a Boost Quest that we post on social media where we ask different questions. And this time we asked, how long do you think our podcast episode should be? And the answer that we got was pretty decisive, don't you think?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Despite my voting as well. So.
Yeah. You tried it all your accounts and got your family to vote as well, or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I said, okay, everybody vote for this, but yeah, we don't listen to your podcast. It doesn't matter. Just click here.
Click here. Yeah. So it was 30 minutes.
30 minutes. So we're already a minute and 20 in. So I think we're already ahead of schedule because we did put a time box in our plans. So.
We did not put a time box in there. You put a time box in there. And it's pretty detailed and we're already behind schedule. And I just want to point out, someone has been saying that 30 minutes is about right all along. Just, don't want to mention me.
Fair enough. Okay. Yeah. So
we're going to try to stick to 30 minutes. And not only that, but today we want to talk about, we have news and updates as we normally do, but we do also have a topic to talk more into in depth. So we'll get back to that later. But first, let's look at the news, because there were news this week as well, weren't there?
As there always is. So the very first thing that we saw is that the Microsoft Power Automate process mining is now generally available, and that was on the Power Automate blog. So this is, again, if you're working, trying to find more efficient ways to do some of the processes, this is a pretty cool thing that will analyze the logs, suggest cloud flows and those types of things to make things more efficient. It's also, good as you're engineering these solutions and these business systems. Getting that extra insight into this is probably be very helpful.
Yeah, and that is actually old news. I think that came out August 1st, but it's very important, and it's a nice and cool feature to see, and definitely a lot of AI involved as well, I think, so very cool.
Yeah, and it's like I mentioned last time, double announcements, the previews and the GAs. So this is GA now, so it's fully supported.
Definitely, yeah. And another thing that I saw this week was the application insights and how you now can connect it to your Power Platform environment to get more telemetry. And this was released, this blog post is from August 24th, so that's pretty new. Have you worked with the application insights at all?
A little bit here and there, just to, not so much with the Power Platform in general. But yeah, just a little bit to get some insights and some diagnostics and things like that, around just to make sure your whole Power Platform is running smoothly and efficiently. And this is something that if you're in a consulting company, you have customers, this is sort of a value add that I know a lot of support plans have in place. It's not only resolving issues, but kind of doing that maintenance, very much like you take your car in to get, the tires changed in the winter or the oil changed, like everything else. Your Power Platform should just have, good required general maintenance. And, these application insights is another tool to make sure things are running, that your flows are firing, and all those types of things.
Yeah. Now, I've used it with Power Pages actually. So when it was Power Apps Portals, I would use it as, instead of using Google Analytics or Clarity that we, tend to use now, I would hook the web app in Azure to application insights, and I would get monthly active users. I would get telemetry around performance, and I could set goals, and I could see which pages maybe needed some work, and how long load times, how many, stuff like that. So familiar with the product. I know it's kind of pricey. I don't know the details around it. So if that's something you're looking to, make sure that you know what kind of pricing goes with that. I haven't looked into that at all. Just a thought that occurred to me. So, but yeah, definitely check that out.
Cool. And then the next one we have listed here is, of course, have you heard of Copilots at all? So I think
if you haven't,
if you haven't, check it out. So there was an interesting YouTube video by, and these guys are really entertaining. It's the podcast or the YouTube series is called Guy in a Cube. It's with Adam and Patrick, and they're talking about Power BI Copilots. And Ulrikke, you actually got me onto this link here. So what stood out for you in this video?
Yeah, I really can't remember because it's so long since I saw the video. Mine went completely blank. No, I actually watched them before, and it's a very short introduction into how Copilot works with Power BI, and they're going into the specifics. So one of them have enabled the Copilot capabilities in Power BI, and the other hasn't. And so they're kind of showing and telling and demoing that in the environment. To show each other just how to enable the new capabilities, and also looking, at other stuff as well. So definitely worth checking out if you're doing Power BI stuff, and they're very entertaining as well. So definitely a shout out to the Guy in a Cube.
Cool.
Yeah.
As we are, of course, too. Entertaining.
Some say that we are. Not sure where they got that from. And other news of Copilots, and this is, we do know that there is other news than Copilot stuff, but actually this time around it was a lot of interesting things. So we got Copilot brings the power of intelligence to your favorite Power Apps, and this is Copilot in model-driven apps. Did you see that?
I did see that. I and I haven't had a chance to try it out yet, but I'm so excited about this because over the years, delivering solutions for clients, and a lot of it, of course, I come from the dynamic CRM world, where, of course, that is the grandfather of model-driven apps. And I keep telling my customers at the time, it's like, you have all this data. We can start doing reports. We can start doing dashboards and charts, and just to get some insights in this data. Now we have Copilot, so their end users can start asking questions of the data that they have in their own system, which is really cool.
Yeah, I agree. And then, yeah, I'm with you. I think it's nice to see that model-driven apps get some love as well. And Copilot showed up. For me, that was I did a social media post about this, just getting up in the morning, my coffee, that's my favorite time of the morning, 6 a.m. I'm alone. The house is completely quiet. I open up my Power Pages project that I'm working on, and suddenly there's a small announcement down in the corner. Would you like to try Power Pages Copilot in Visual Studio Code? I'm like, oh yes, I would very much like, and it just enables everything, and it shows up, and it's Copilot for Power Pages specifically in Visual Studio Code. Now that is amazing to me. Tell me more about that.
So this is something that I knew was coming because we were working on the documents, and I was actually involved in some of the testing and things like that. The team was asking me, can you try this out? And hello, sure, of course I'm going to try this out. And it's really cool because this is as much as a lot of these Copilots are for makers, this is a Copilot for the pro developers. Now, of course, we've already had the GitHub Copilot just for the regular software development, but now this is specific to Power Pages. It is unfortunately just for US-based tenants right now. But the cool thing is you download your site to your local machine. You open up in Visual Studio Code for desktop. You can do all the same wonderful things, create web templates and things like that. But now you can start injecting code like JavaScript, HTML, Liquid, generate fetch XML as well. for a lot of these things. Portal Web API, which I know a lot of folks
Yes.
kind of struggle with as well.
Me
And it's
too.
cool. And so you can do a lot of neat little code things. Now, again, and maybe I'm just at risk of repeating myself. You need to know the whole
Yeah.
structure and what you're doing. You can't just say, create me a web template that does these 20 different things. It will make an attempt to generate something for you, but you need to know how that plumbing works, how it's wired together. But again, this to me is going to be an extremely powerful tool in a pro developer's toolbox that happens to be working on Power Pages. So definitely, yeah, it was a very exciting announcement. I have created a short little, it's actually one of my shorter videos, believe it or not, because I just really wanted to show the very quick highlights of how you could generate some JavaScript code within your Power Pages. So even if you're not building intricate web templates with Liquid, but you want to do something kind of business rule specific like hide and showed fields. Of course, if you work with Power Pages, you're kind of limited to using JavaScript, but this tool will help you formulate those JavaScripts to do those type of business rule type things on forms and lists. So yeah, spin up a US based trial, download VS Code for desktop, load the latest Power Platform tools, and give it a whirl. And the cool thing, it's built in. If you get a prompt that works really well for you, there's a thumbs up button there. If you get a result that just makes no sense or is not what you asked, give it a thumbs down. I know the team's looking at this just to make that large language model even better. So yeah, as you can tell, I know both of us, I think both of us get excited about Power Pages stuff in general. And this to me was this was a highlight, one of the big Copilot highlights for me.
Yeah, and it's exactly what I've asked for as well, because I know that the Copilot stuff that we get in the studio, yes, sure, it's great, but it doesn't really float the boat for me. So when I saw this light up, this is something that I'll actually use every single day, and it will help me not having to Google everything and just pull everything from Stack Overflow where I find a blog post or whatever. This will give me that directly into the studio, and then maybe, I'm not saying we shouldn't use Xrm Toolbox anymore, but maybe this will alleviate some of the things that we use other third-party tools for. So to have that Copilot in Visual Studio Code, and then it makes me feel like a developer, because I know the developers here, my colleagues, they've had Copilot in Visual Studio for so long, and they keep saying that they want to demo something, or we have a tech talk about something, and they'll say, yeah, I can show you how this works, but actually today I don't write I don't write code as much because the Copilot works so well. So I'm like, okay, so this Copilot is really going to be my best friend, as I said in the post as well. This is actually a Copilot that I'll have use for, so that's exciting. Now, time cap, how are we for time?
We're 30 seconds over, so that's better than I thought we would be. So no, we're still good. So we can talk about the Copilots and the AI, and kind of wrap up this segment with this. It's actually an article in Fast Company. I'm not sure if you've read Fast Company. It's a magazine. Of course, everything's online now. But I know Fast Company was something when I was running my own company. I think I subscribed to Fast Company, and they had an article. It was about our Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, and the title is "Microsoft Satya Nadella is winning big tech's AI war. Here's how." And it's quite a long article, and we're not going to break it all down just because the time cop is watching. But overall, it talks about how Microsoft has a relationship with OpenAI, how the investments are going, and how they're incorporating Copilots in not only Power Platform but also into Windows, and of course the Copilot for GitHub that we talked about, all of these other things, and how I think in a way I know that this work has been kind of building up over the last few years. But from a public perspective, it seems like it was just January, February where all this sort of came to light, like we sort of, Microsoft sort of switched on, but it was already building up to that. And about how it surprised a lot of industry experts of how far ahead of the game Microsoft is. Not only that, it's a good article, balanced in terms of talks about some of the other negative aspects of artificial intelligence and the perceptions, and how in some cases it's maybe not quite up to expectations, or not working, or creating some concerns. I know that within Microsoft, I know that this is a very important thing. If you look at the documentation for any of these new Copilot features, you will see that there is a link that goes to something called responsible AI. So Microsoft is very conscious about this and to make sure that everything is done correctly, yet still at a very accelerated fashion. So I would recommend anybody, we're going to have the link in the show notes, if you're interested in AI, and I think it's not that if you're interested or not, you're going to get dragged in, whether you walk in or get dragged in kicking and screaming. It's a great article about AI it covers a lot of different aspects.
Yeah, definitely. And the article starts with talking about Nadella when he walks on stage on Build, and he says like it's not like I came in on January 1st and said let's start doing press releases. This is something that's been in the works for so long and for so many years. And when you know that now and you look back at the big announcements and the work that you can actually see it, we didn't see it at the time, but you can see that those small pieces, coming together and to be at this point in time. I think this article also reads to me, it's emphasis on that fact that we're here and we're experiencing this and we are technologists, professional technologists working in this space at this time in history. That's pretty special. So kind of I have a little goosebump experience reading through that article. It is actually historic what we're working through. So I just a little humbled to be a part of it actually, and to see it like that.
Yeah, it's very cool, and like it's and I know that sometimes there are, and I think what I liked about it too, and I think I mentioned is it is exciting. It is exciting times, but it also kind of there's the other aspects of it too about what it is and what it isn't as well, and I think that's important to consider. So
yeah, absolutely. And then from that to something completely different.
Yeah.
Let's dive into exams with access to Microsoft Learn. The thing that got my attention regarding this was Chris Huntingford on LinkedIn or something. He does not like this idea. Now you will be able, there's an announcement, you'll be able to, during exams, you'll be having access to Microsoft Learn. So for certifications. And my initial idea was, oh, great. You can have your rule book with you while you do your exam. That should be a good thing, right?
You would think. And it's interesting because, and I think his summary at the bottom is, study up, you will not pass by relying on Microsoft Learn. And when I saw that announcement as well, and I know that some others sort of, praise it, oh, this is such a great thing. But I've seen this. This is actually not the first time this has happened or Microsoft has done this. Going back probably 15, 20 years, Microsoft had bought Great Plains. Great Plains had certification exams. And at that time, I remember working at a company where the exams were online, so they're considered open book. And one person on our team kept failing the exam because he was relying on the fact it was open book. So you got to realize these things are still timed. So to look something up and to try to figure it out just to answer a question, you're not going to be very successful. You still need to know your stuff. Now, you're right. You shouldn't have to memorize all of these different settings. You shouldn't have to memorize all the Power Effects functions, those types of things, but you still need to have a good grasp on the content and what it is you're trying to learn and the skills measured and everything like that. Don't go into an exam thinking, oh, it's open book, I'll pass this, no problem. You're gonna definitely fail with that. So I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I appreciate that they're doing it. To me, it's going to be a case of if I see a question and I'm already going to know potentially what the answers are. If I look at, there's like 4 answers and I've already usually limited 1 or 2. If I need to decide out of the 2 remaining ones, which is the correct one, then yeah, maybe if I know where in MS Learn that topic is that I can find out, that's going to be helpful. But just to consider it open book and I don't need to prepare, I think that's the message that I think some people might be receiving, but don't take that message prepare for the exams, go in thinking you don't have access to MS Learn. Use it as a tool, not as a crutch, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do agree. And my take on this also is I would use this at the end. So I would go through the exam. I'll use my gut because that's what I do. The first thing that I think of, I'll put that in. And then at the end, and I know that people say you shouldn't do that either because that's when you make mistakes. But if there's something that, exactly like you were saying, if there's something that I'm a little insecure about, if there's something that I should know, then I would look that up. But that also brings us to another thing. Why do we need to know specific things and details that are in the documentation in order to be good consultants or makers? Why are those detailed questions in the exams in the first place?
So my answer to that, and that's a great question, and I've heard that before, but you might have also heard me say, and I believe I said that last week when we were talking about some of the other certification exams, just because you pass that exam doesn't make you an expert in that technology. So a couple things with exams. First off, just the volume of people writing these exams. There's tens of thousands of people writing those exams. To me, the measure of a good consultant or a good solution architect or a good developer is the work you produce, how you take the experiences, and you're continuously learning. That's what's going to make you successful. What the exam is going to provide to you as a professional is, first off, you go through the skills measured, and it's going to give you exposure to other areas that you might not be currently working on a project with. So for example, going through, I wrote the PL200 a few weeks back, I wrote the PL600 and the PL900, and for instance, I don't do a lot of Power BI stuff. I'm aware of it, how it works. So it forced me to go into that material a little bit deeper and to get, a better understanding, do a few labs, understand the concepts a little bit. So first, the primary objective is it's going to help me answer questions on Power BI in these exams. But the other thing it's going to do is if I'm now meeting with a customer or someone in the community and they're having a problem, okay, I have this issue, how am I going to resolve it? Then I'm like, ooh, this might be something Power BI can address. Whereas if I don't know what the tool does, then I might be giving out incorrect information. So I know, ooh, Power BI can give you a dashboard that's going to give you this type of information. Oh, we can embed a Canvas app into the Power BI dashboard so your users can feed this information back. This looks like it could be a viable solution to solve your problem. And then armed with some of that learning knowledge that I had to learn for the certification exam, I could put together a proof of concept or even, a demo or something, or work with the customer or my colleague or something to get to the point where we can do this. So I've said this for many aspects of life. Awareness is just having an awareness of something already helps solving the problem. So that's why I think some of these exams are important. But I also go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. No, just to bridge the gap as well, because we were talking about this with my students earlier. We had actually, this is very, convenient, but we had a meeting earlier today, the students that were onboarding, and we talked about the different disciplines. So here we have a low-code platform team, and then we have the Power BI team as part of the data and analytics department at Atera, and we don't naturally cross over. So even though Power BI is part of the Power Platform, they don't know about Dataverse in that respect, because from Power Platform part of the world, we would, if you look to analytics, you need reporting, we look to Power BI, that's default. But if Power BI looks at data sources, there's an array of data sources. Dataverse and Power Platform is only one of probably 10 most used data sources. What do I know? This is a random number, but they relate to so many other things. So it's not natural for them to bridge over to Power Platform. It's on us to bridge those gaps into, yes, bot framework and PVA, yes, Power BI, connectivity, reporting. We need to own that bridge and to do that work and to know about all the different capabilities. When we talk to other teams, and in a fusion team, I think we are the center of that knowledge, pulling everyone else in to that team. And so that's also part of why I think certifications are so important, because you check all the boxes.
Right, for sure. And then the other thing, though, the questions, having been involved with creating the questions and reviewing the questions for these exams, they're never meant to trick you. They're meant to kind of challenge you in terms of your thinking. In just maybe these are some hints when you write the exams. There's no fake technology. So one of the questions won't be for a feature or product that doesn't exist. The other thing, so they have to be plausible answers, but even though they're not the correct ones. And these are reviewed by subject matter experts. There has to be cross references back to Microsoft documentation. So it's not a trick question of an obscure feature that's not documented. There has to be backup for all of this. Is it 100% perfect? Sometimes it's not. I know the exams I wrote, there was a couple questions I'm like, that question would not have passed my review criteria.
I know.
But it is. Like I said, it is something to kind of get people thinking. Like what you said, to be able to collaborate with your colleagues or something, just to have an appreciation of what they do or what they can do. You can ask better questions. Like you might not know how to do something, but you know something can be done, and then you can have that much more productive conversation. It was interesting. You were talking about students. You and I were talking offline last week sometime, and about how you prepare for the exams, because I think a lot of people get nervous and they don't know where to learn or what materials there. You talked about something about going through the skills measured, and you made a checklist from that. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, so I had a meeting with a new colleague just last week, and we looked at the skills measured part of the certification page. So if you open up a certification on Microsoft Docs or Learn, you'll see that there's a link to a skills measured site, and that will take you through to a page where all the things that are measured are listed. So you will see for Power BI, and there would be bullet points of what you're expected to know for Power BI, and then you go to the next one. It's perhaps all. So what I did was I copied that into a OneNote or an Excel spreadsheet, and I would make just small checkboxes so that once I go through Learn, I would just check all the boxes for all the things that I went through and all the modules that I did and all the topics that I went through, just to make sure that I knew that I was learning all the things that I knew I had to learn for that exam. Now, my new colleague, he was taking it one step further, because in the learning paths and in the modules on Learn, it will state how long you should be expected to spend on that particular module. And he was saying, okay, if I put that time in there, then I can actually calculate how long I'll have to train in order to do the exam, kind of thing. So I really like that approach. It's a very systematic approach to learning and to make sure that you learn all the things that you need to know before the exam. And that is, of course, the skills measured are also in percent. So there would be 20% on Power BI, 20% on Power Apps, etc. So you would see kind of how much of each you're expected to know, and how big part of that exam that is. So that's a tip for me.
And you talked about resources. You said like Microsoft Learn. So Learn has some great learning paths to go through that information. The other thing too, we talk about like resources for learning. This is, I don't know if I call this a hack or something that I've done, is if you become a Microsoft certified trainer, and in order to do that, you have to deliver some training, and then it used to be a fee, so it's now free. You can become an MCT. I'm not sure if the free thing is still going to be there forever, or it's going to go back to a paid system. But once you become an MCT, then you get access to all the Microsoft official curriculum. And that's good to learn, because you may never teach something like Azure Data Fundamentals, but you can actually go in and take a look at the learning material that Microsoft has created for other trainers to deliver that class. So I found these are amazing learning resources, and sort of goes to show what Microsoft considers you need to know in order to pass some of these exams. And then the other cool thing is the labs for some of these curriculums is actually published on GitHub, and that's publicly available. So you can go in, and we're going to provide those links, and you can go in and do those labs yourself, or as part of a class or whatever, but it goes through step by step how to do the lab. So it gives you hands-on experience and exposure to some of this material. And then that's what Microsoft provides. But of course, there's all this other community content. There's paid stuff. There's LinkedIn Learning, Udemy, Pluralsight. These are, resources that there is a fee for. Some of the other stuff that I tried out over the weekend, actually, and some of you may know, before I joined Microsoft, I was involved with a site called 365.training, and that's run by some other MVPs, of course, Julie Yak, David Yak, George Dubinsky, Derek Borman, and there are paid courses there, there are subscriptions there, but they have some free courses, and I did the Power Effects course, it was a free course. But what's really cool is they've built an AI. We were talking about AI earlier. They've built an AI, so this can help you learn and drill down on specific concepts. And then for Power Effects, I was able to, ask their AI on how to build a particular piece of Power Effects code that I had struggled with a few months earlier, and their AI generated that. Now, I did ask them.
Oh, wow.
I said, okay, what is the large language model this pointing to, and this and that, and then all I got back was, it's magic from David Yak. So I think that just means it's proprietary, which is fair enough. But
fair enough.
And like I said, so you can sign up for their site for free. Check out some of the free courses. And this is because it's not Microsoft produced. You get some of the real world aspects to it too.
So it's not just the gospel. It's actually real world oriented. Right. Great.
Yeah. Cool. So, and then
that's great.
And then everybody has different learning styles. Do you want to kind of wrap this up with that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So this is something that actually was brought to my attention way back when I was when I was a SharePoint consultant. I attended this session with a guy that introduced different styles of learning. So basically the idea is that there's some say 5, some say 7 different styles of learning. And if you identify what kind of learner you are, it's easier for you to absorb the content. So for instance, if you have the idea of putting together a tent, now I would start putting all the sticks together because I know that that's what you do. And then I would look for the long hoop that you needed to put it through, and I would put the longest thing through the longest hoop, and I would just, go from there. When you started to learn the Power Platform, I just spun up a trial and, created all the templates that you could create. And then I just picked them apart and destroyed everything. The whole environment went, but I could, open the environment. There was errors all over the place. It kind of ruined the internet kind of thing. And that's my learning style. I picked apart radios with the screwdriver when I was a kid. That's what I do, right? But other people are you could be a visual learner, meaning probably YouTube videos or tutorials is best. Maybe maybe you like to read. You read documentation. I know my mother, for instance, she would pull up documentation and read it from first to last page before even touching anything, because that's what she does. And can you believe that? People getting a new phone and they read the manual from back to back before even pulling up the phone. Not to mention the clingy plastic thingy on the screen that that's on there until it falls off of it. That's the first thing I do. I rip up the plastic and I'm good to go. Power this thing up, and then I don't need that book. It's somewhere else. So and then figuring out, so maybe you're an audio learner, so you learn best by listening to people like us, podcasts or audiobooks or whatever. Finding out how you learn the best by looking back. Look back to when you were in school. Maybe you're the one learner that needs to teach others. That's how you learn the best. Find out that about yourself and then apply that to how you go about learning for your exams or any other part of your life. That is something that's been very beneficial to me. And today, in the meeting with the students as well, they're all asking me, where do I start? What do we do? How do we go about this? And we have also started with the adoption framework from the Power Platform adoption site. We've created the SharePoint site, the Power Platform Knowledge Hub site template that you can have for SharePoint, and we started to fill that with content. Just starting that journey of adopting the Power Platform ourselves. And there's so much amazing good content in there as well. And I think those two stories go hand in hand. It's certifications, it's the adoption framework, and it's the COE starter kit and everything that goes into the COE, Center of Excellence and Center of Enablement. Those three together, that's where we start. And I think that's a sensible way to start as well.
Cool. And speaking of starts, everything has to come to an end. And so we have slipped a little bit past our prescribed time. So to wrap things up, I think I think it's important. I did want to give a quick shout out to Rory Neary. He posted on LinkedIn over the weekend that he was cleaning out his garage and he was listening to our podcast. Thanks, Rory. We'll have a link to Rory's YouTube. So you can check that out, plus all his other great content, speaking of learning content. And yeah, we'd probably be interested to, let us know, where do you listen to us if you're listening to us? Is it in the car, in the gym, cleaning out your garage, whatever? We'd want to know. You can also buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/PowerPlatBoost. Definitely appreciate that. I think our thing is buy us a beer. Of course, this, that info comes into... that money would come in and help us pay to keep the lights on this podcast, so to speak. So before we wrap up, Ulrikke, is anything else you wanted to say or talk about?
No, I think I'm good. Just I'm looking forward to seeing you in person again now for Nordic Summit. That's just around the corner, and then we have a busy few weeks and months ahead of us with the Vegas and everything.
Cool.
Good.
Awesome. So if you like this episode, and I guess you did, so we're a little bit over, so sorry for the folks that voted 30 minutes, but we're not quite at 40 yet. So as long as I wrap this up quick, give us a review, shout us out on social media posts. Greatly appreciate those comments and feedback. So thanks for listening to the Power Platform Boost podcast with your host, Ulrikke and myself, Nick Dolman, and see you next time for your timely boost of Power Platform news.
And the next episode will be September 20th.